Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.
Just after midnight, late December 1988. Strange lights in the sky, glowing spheres among the trees. The woods lit up like fire, electricity filled the air. All hell let loose in rendition. The silence echoed through the forest to the bone. Unidentified aerial phenomenon. Time froze, world stopped, reality changed, lost in state of shock. After encounter at Rendlesham.
Hello everyone, this is Johnny Cobb, and you're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the UK's biggest paranormal radio network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young. You've also just listened to a tune called Remission, composed, produced, and performed by myself and Jerry McCoy. I sing all lead vocals and play all keyboards. Jerry McCoy plays all guitars and bass on our original songs. We invite you to visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/Cobb and McCoy. That's facebook.com/Cobb and McCoy. Thank you so very much. We sincerely hope you enjoy this show.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you for that intro, Johnny. As you can no doubt tell, this is going to be another Rendlesham themed show. The guest today is going to be James Worrow, who's got a book out that is written with John Burroughs. Now, John Burroughs was one of the witnesses on the first night of the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident back in 1980. But before we go into that, I'd just like to say thank you for the continuing messages, emails, etc. As always, if anyone would like to get in touch with me, my email address is davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. That's davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. Okay, right, let's get straight into the show and introduce James Worrow. Hello James, welcome to the show.
Welcome, David.
So, what, you're welcoming me to my show? Okay. No, hang on.
You're in my home, I'm in yours.
Oh, right, okay. Well, we'll do it that way then. Okay. Anyway, it's nice to have you on, James. Thank you very much for agreeing to come on and talking about your new book, which is called...
Oh, right. The name of my book is Weaponisation of an Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, the Rendlesham Forest UAP Incident 40 years later.
Right. I thought I'd let you say that because it's a bit of a mouthful. I thought you might get your mouth around it better than I could.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, yeah, and I was very grateful for Johnny Cobb and Jerry McCoy. He actually sent me the MP3 for the music. It's like a music video, but he sent me the MP3, which I played at the beginning of the show. Were you involved in that, or?
No, not at all. No, but the gentleman did send a copy of it to me, and I thought, well, it's fine, it's good, Some of it in there did remind me a little bit of Pink Floyd, actually. Some of the stuff in there. So
yeah. Well, how did he get involved in it? Did he just do it off his own back, or?
What, the music side of things?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I've only recently become friends with the gentleman.
Yeah, I just wonder if I don't know, because I've sort of spoken to him. He's been on my friends list for some time. I just kind of wondered how he became involved. Maybe he just decided to write a tune called Rendlesham because it's the 40th anniversary. Well, we've just passed the 40th anniversary.
Well, yeah, music's a wonderful thing, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's a form of creation, and it's just another medium of someone, maybe doing a painting, creating music, writing a poem. It's just another form of description of your interests.
It is, yeah. I mean, as you well know, because you're a musician yourself.
Correct.
You play the guitar and everything. I thought everyone know out there you're quite an accomplished guitarist.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
So if you want to send
very
me
shy one at that too, believe it or not.
So if you want to send me any creepy music I can play on the show, please do so.
Oh, I have much.
Good. Anyway, James, so before we get into talking about Rendlesham and your book, how did you actually get involved in the whole ufology field, your interests? Do you have your own experiences, no doubt?
Yes, I mean, it stems from when my mum and dad had their experience, actually. When it was in 1975, and it was in Barking in London, and this incident, to cut a long story short, it involved a big ball of light that appeared outside their window, and over near, well, they could see it from their window, and it was over by the power station there, the old power station in Barking at the time, and my dad went to the front door to go downstairs to tell his friends who lived below them what they could see. All he remembers is going to the door, doesn't remember anything after that. At the same time, my mum remembers the light splitting into three and then, boom, then shooting off.
Mm.
And obviously this is what intrigued me, when it came down to the Rendlesham incident itself through the whole description. But yeah, so from the age of 6 onwards, my father used to bring home the Unexplained magazine and Fate magazine as well.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, my mum had a keen interest in that as well, and not only that, I was quite intrigued to hear Ronnie Dugdale's background as well. That he has a very similar background to my family in the sense that we have a kind of history of strange happenings, strange events, kind of foretelling of things to come, this, that and the other, and the clairvoyant type of things. So I had that mixture in my family as well. So I had a good kind of upbringing within this subject. I was constantly going to the library. Barking Library used to be my favourite home. As a ginger, I used to get bullied at school, and the library was my safe house. Right. So, but in a funny way, in an ironic way, maybe it done me a good thing because I learnt much.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? Just for being ginger, you get bullied. I don't know.
Doesn't bother me anymore.
No, it's crazy. But that's how stupid things are, though, isn't it?
Back then, times were different, and hopefully times will continue to change and become much better for us all in the future.
Yeah. Oh, so have you seen many UFOs yourself?
Have I seen? I've seen strange things in the sky. That one of them actually appeared between me and my friend Matthew, and we was talking about the subject. Went out the back, looked up in the sky, and I was pointing out different things. Oh, we can see a satellite if we look close enough, and then oh look, there's a satellite, and watch this satellite move across the sky. Moved across the sky, then like satellites kind of do, you expect them to blink on, blink out, but this one seemed to come to a halt. And he said, "Are you sure that's not a star?" I said, "Well, no, it's not. You saw it move, and it stopped." Yeah. Then there was it disappeared. It just went out, and then all of a sudden it was almost like an electrical flash or something just cut across the sky, and we both jumped. And we looked at each other, and I said, "Well, that was weird, wasn't it?" And it shook me, actually. It really did at the time. These things happen.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've seen that myself. Things that look like stars, and they move and they stop and move and stop. I've seen it. In fact, that was one of my earliest recollections. I was actually sitting on my doorstep when I used to live in London, back in the late 50s. This is, before satellites and things, believe it, as long ago as that. I was actually watching a star moving and stopping. Being a kid, I just thought, oh, it's a moving star. It was only later on I thought, well, what the hell was that? It's one of those things that's always stuck with me. And it was only sort of like in the mid-60s, as I sort of become to realise what stars were and everything, I thought, well, what was that was moving back then, and stopping? So, it's something I've always thought about. And then, I've mentioned this a few times on the show, but then I saw a large oval orange object going across the sky in 1960. I think it was 66, or it might have been 67. But that was something that I thought, well, there's really something out there. This was going across the night sky,
Yes.
And then I've heard about these orange objects quite often, since then. There's even a book I've got about them. But anyway, enough about me. We'll talk about your book now and how you got involved in the Rendlesham. Because you did a lot of studies at the Rendlesham, I understand.
I did on the early day, back in the early 90s, 2000s, and then things changed for me in a personal life, and I spent, as I said, being a few years being married. Spent another 10 years doing a job whereby I was only probably in my own house about 6 hours, 7 hours a day. And I worked myself to a pulp basically. I had a little bit of a breakdown, bit of a nervous breakdown, and I had to get better. So through getting better, I was the health team who was looking after me at the time suggested I go back to doing something I was interested in, a hobby, and which was subject we are talking about right now. And the first thing I reached out to do was something local, something, that I could investigate possibly, or or go and experience the place where this happened, maybe visit it one day. And all those ideas come to my head, and then lo and behold, there was a conference with Richard Dolan, John Burroughs, and Larry Warren that I attended.
I was there, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, that was a little treat for me as part of my kind of get better mode. And I listened to John Burroughs and listened to obviously Richard and Larry, but it was John Burroughs. His presentation actually struck me. It really did. It kind of, how do I say, it was something that I thought, wow, now it kind of made sense to me, but it didn't, if you know what I mean. It was, it's a funny thing, but it makes even more sense to me now, actually, in that respect.
Yeah, that was the time when he was this was before he got his compensation payout, wasn't it? And he'd just been gathering all the evidence and information together, and he was putting it out there as to what it was. Yeah?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. If I'm wrong in the dates, I apologise. But as I said, I went through things in the early years and that, and some of those kind of dates. Sometimes I can get a bit mixed up. For instance, I was at the Colonel Hall gig as well, and lo and behold, I cannot remember the year I was there, but it was that year.
Was it the 2015 one, the one when he came to Woodbridge, when there was quite a stink about it?
Well, unfortunately, it seemed to be. Well, there was a couple. One of them was the one whereby, unfortunately, he mentioned a few things that we won't go into right now, and it caused a big storm. Only because I asked one question, and it kind of created a storm that kind of led for about 2-3 years.
It did go on, and it grew from that. Yeah, I agree with you.
To me, and that became a distraction for me from that point onwards. So I decided to go out on my own and just concentrate and try not to get as distracted, and just put my head down and start researching the technology that was involved at the time, and whether or not any of this could have played a part in the events that took place.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I mean, you know, I actually arranged a conference for Colonel Holt in 2019, just at the end of that. And things had changed because he returned to Woodbridge, and the whole atmosphere was completely different to what it was in 2015 when he came. You know, because all that sort of bad blood had all been sort of realised, and you know, and I think people know what side of the fence they're on now. You know, I think they realised about what happened he was basically telling the truth on that aspect.
Yeah, that's again. It's nothing to do with your expression of fences, but it's fences that have been arranged in a way to stop.
I've got to say, you're right.
Stop this from the pieces from being put together, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it was
there are
figure of
reasons behind
speech.
that. I understand. I mean, now I do understand the reason behind that from a national security level. And there are things that I will never say, and there are things that I'll always keep to myself. But there are things that I mean, the stuff obviously isn't classified that I'm talking about. It's just stuff that sometimes it's best just not to say anything, because why worry people when there's no need to worry?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I know, because I signed the Official Secrets Act as well for the job that I was doing. Because I can actually talk about it. I was working on the AC-130s, the gunships for the US Air Force. So, but I mean, that project's long gone now. So, but that was all secret
I built
at the
one
time.
of those when I was younger, funny enough, in an Airfix model.
An Airfix, did you? Oh, right.
Yeah, I used to hang that from my ceiling. I was very proud.
Oh, well, I worked on every one. There was only 20 of them, actually, for the all-TV system. The laser system on it.
Ooh, very nice.
We've taken out all the, like in the Middle East and all that, all through the Gulf Wars, and taken out Taliban and God knows what else, and Saddam Hussein. And at the time, I thought I was all doing the right thing. Now I realised that those wars were illegal, but I was all really proud of it at the time. I've changed my mind considerably since then. But
we have opinions and we move on, don't we? And history is supposed to be there to teach us all a lesson. And unless we listen to history, we will never learn the lessons.
No, that's right. Anyway, James, I've been ploughing through your book today. Did a little bit yesterday. I was very impressed with Win Keach's contribution to it. Now, Win Keach is a friend of both of ours, and I think he's quite well known out there. But I was actually blown away with his information on the technical details of a lot of stuff actually. Apart from the rest of the book, there's a lot of technical stuff in it. But when we got to your part, how did that develop? Were you talking with John Burroughs, and how did you come to write the book with John, or put the book together? I know there's contributions from people like Ronnie Dugdale, who's he's been on the show in the past as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, originally it was going to be just a little short story, just from John's perspective, and on the information that I've collated over the past sort of 6 years related to his incident experience, however you want to phrase it,
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, after you. No,
I was going to say, I suppose what we ought to do is just go through just have people out there that don't know too much about what happened at Rendlesham. I suppose we should piece together a little bit about what we do know happened, like the official story, and then we can talk a little bit about what you've found out since, right? So, I mean, I'll start it off. On the night of the 25th into the 26th of December, 1980, there were lights seen in the forest. Perhaps you'd like to take over from there, because this is your show, not mine.
Oh, bless you, bless you. Yeah. You see, I mean, my book pretty much concentrates on my technology aspect side of things. Pretty much comes from the research I collated from night 3, not night 1. And night 3, you can kind of trace back the information that I've collated straight back to night 1, suggestively, from the point of view whereby. Let's say there was a thing called Project Press. It was Pacific Range Electromagnetic Systems Studies, which was set up in 1959, and by 1978, let's say there were studies in many things: phased array, over the horizon radars, electronic tubes, long-range ballistic missile, anti-satellite systems, kind of nuclear and non-nuclear hypervelocity impact systems for destruction of re-entry vehicles, lasers and charged particle beams as directed energy weapons. And that kind of stuff is unclassified, and obviously I wouldn't be mentioning it if it was, but it's there to be researched.
Yeah.
And I'm just bringing it forward to show you that back at that time there was many things that may have played a part in this. Yeah. And I also realised that there was within some of the research I've done, there are mentions of some kind of interference within these certain regions of Europe, where they've been trying to kind of test some of these items in a training environment. And there are also things that they call pen aids, which are penetration aids. And some of these may have actually been able to, kind of come down using certain methods, and then go away using certain methods. They were basically used to penetrate in a conflict, an enemy's position. And these were things that they were experimenting on. And it was only when I started looking at this, it occurred to me that maybe it was something like this that maybe had actually come through the trees, and maybe a light phenomena was very interested in what had come down. Considering the kinds of the electronic countermeasures that would have been in the area or within that vicinity at the time, tracking what may have actually come down, that was highly, highly secretive at the time.
Sure, yeah. Because, it was John Burroughs who was on guard duty that night with Ed Kapanasek, was it? Yeah, I think it was...
the third night, yeah.
On the first night?
Oh, the first night, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, the first night, and then Jim Penniston was called, because he was basically the staff sergeant in charge, and basically, to cut a long story short, John and Jim and Ed Kapanasek went out into the woods, to see what these lights were, because they thought it might have been a downed aircraft. So now they came upon a craft of some sort, apparently. Now, according to Jim Penniston's story, he touched the craft. Now, John doesn't remember too much about a lot of that, does he? He remembers seeing lights, and the story is that John was actually knocked unconscious by a flash or a beam or something.
That's correct.
Now, he doesn't remember too much about that, does he?
Well, unfortunately, if you're in an unconscious state, or if you're in some kind of anaesthetised state, it's like trying to extract information from someone that's, say, been put under for a general anaesthetic, for an operation. If you try to ask someone what happened while you was under anaesthetic, you'd say, well, all I remember is going to sleep and waking up. And that's
I know, it's kind of a silly statement what I made, really.
Not at all, not at all. No, not at all, because people need to kind of understand this side of the phenomena, whereby extracting information about the actual event itself is a very, very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's all to do with self-referentiality and other human traits that may well influence experience. That is something that I'm willing to go into from now till whenever. You know.
But obviously he recognises that he was knocked unconscious by something. Something knocked him out, or if you want to call it, knocked him out, or whatever it did to him. And we can only go by really what Jim and Ed said. But but they picked him up apparently later, didn't they? And
And
obviously they were still seeing these lights in the forest, which they were following around, and they went across Capel Green, etc. on that night.
correct.
Yeah, and then it kind of, well, I think they just went back to the base in the end because they were called back and they couldn't do much else apart from follow these lights. But I mean, we can only go.
What happened was John and Jim actually went out further. Went out. You know, they went out further and they reached a part whereby they could actually, from the original point, you couldn't see, you know, the lighthouse. But when they moved further, they and out into this field, they could.
Yeah.
And they're looking around trying to find out where this light's gone. Something's caught someone's eye. Oh, is that over there?
That's right, yeah.
No, that's not it. But when they turned round or when they looked in another part of the sky, then they saw it again.
Yes.
So it was definitely something there. And it definitely was nothing to do with, you know, the light itself was nothing to do. Now, whether or not there was any radar in the area, either attached to the top of the lighthouse that could have interfered with this other light that they witnessed, that is a complete and total possibility in the line of research that I've carried out.
Yeah, that lighthouse theory, I think, came from the fact that at one point, I don't know if it was John actually was looking in that direction, saw the lighthouse, and Jim apparently, he says that's the lighthouse, John. But of course, after that, they saw the lights elsewhere. So that's kind of where I think that lighthouse really came from.
And as John, that's right. And as John has explained on other shows himself as well, when they actually looked in another part of the sky, they actually saw what they thought was the actual object that they'd saw earlier, you see.
Yeah.
This is where I was looking at radar, and this is why I started looking at how small radars were at the time, and it seemed apparent and that something like that may have been involved if there was this kind of electrical phenomena of some kind, salt flowing around in the sky. Then the microwaves within certain radars would interact with that, because we know that does happen in a lab, and therefore back in 1980 they may not have been aware of that on a larger scale, but we do know that we can manipulate these kind of things using certain techniques, you know. So
yeah, absolutely.
We know that now. We didn't know that then, obviously, and it was national security back then. So.
Yeah. Well, somebody would have known it, but not the likes of you and me. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. And now we have the internet whereby I don't have to go to the library as much. I can order books online. I can get them sent to me, you know, and it makes my progress a lot easier this way.
Yeah, sure. And I was saying, in the job that I was in, I know very much about, or I don't know very much. What I mean is I know a lot of what was going on in the field of lasers and stuff like that, because a lot of it was very top secret, and it's amazing what was going on. But yeah, I think the next night was a bit more in question, wasn't it? Because I think there was even a question: was it the second night, or was it actually the second occurrence on one of the other nights? Which was it's one you don't hear too much about, isn't it?
No, that's correct, and it would be something that I would like someone out there maybe to collate the witnesses that were there that night. Maybe put something together themselves. Maybe this book may help them in a quest to be able to do that by looking at things that they may not have been aware of, you know, by looking in other directions. And yeah, just you know, I'm here to help and not to hinder.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. I think the likes of what we are trying. I mean, myself and you, and we're trying to get everything together and get people together. That's why I've tried to get everyone I can on this show to give their different point of views. I actually had Nick Redfern on. I don't know if you heard that show just before Christmas. And I kind of couldn't see. I mean, Nick's great. I like him. He's brilliant. But I couldn't get my head around it being a military operation. You know, he could well be right, but because you know, I'm a good friend of Chuck, Colonel Holt, and because I've spoken to him personally. He's been in my home. I couldn't get my head around the fact that because I mean, he's told me himself it definitely wasn't a military operation. Whether he's covering something up and wouldn't even tell me, I don't know. But
we do know for a fact from Colonel Holt that the Russians did lose a satellite at that time, you know, and we had a classified plane making emergency landing about then, but the classified plane was ours.
Yeah.
So something may well have dropped from the bottom of that plane and landed in the forest.
Yeah, there was something. I know there's probably all sorts of stuff going on that we don't know about. But
Well, one other thing that I need to highlight as well. There was a lot of talk about holograms and this type of thing, and this mustn't get mixed up with the kind of the quantum nature of other things that may be brought up in the future. The hologram thing from my research at the time was pretty much to do with LiDAR and how LiDAR works and how pulses can create a picture of something, and then they could, and basically see through forests, see the enemy through forests. But you can see it quite now easily on YouTube or any military program you want to see. But obviously, because they progress from there, and it's the progression, obviously we can't talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I mean, we also had that other story about the SAS doing a practical joke on the base, and a lot we were laughing about. We said, well, if that had been the case, there'd have been a lot of deaths going on because you couldn't play that sort of joke on a nuclear base.
Well, no, that was completely ridiculous. And
that would have been like the UK invading the USA, wouldn't it? And there'd have been a lot of deaths involved.
Well, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of ill intentions, unfortunately, and some people are out there just to make a name for themselves.
And to muddy the waters as well.
Well, and there's people. Some people out there seem to want to confuse the subject for whatever reason they want to do that. It's up to them. But I'm not confused, and I refuse to be confused.
Yeah.
Now there's a T-shirt. I was confused.
Yeah, I'll get those printed up.
Yes.
A good part of the show, that, I reckon. Yeah. But so obviously, there was a lot of confusion thrown into it, sort of from the early days, wasn't there? Right from the start. When Colonel Holt made that, when he wrote the memo, that was never meant to be made public anyway. And it was kind of I suppose it was an exercise that had to be contained within the Air Force. That, it has to be noted, but it kind of escaped without his knowledge, didn't it?
It did. Again, and that's been gone over quite a lot.
Yeah.
In the past, and many things have been suggested about that. But again, that's something that I may have looked at in the early days, but my research moved on from that.
Yeah.
And it went from pretty much from researching that all the way up to DNA nanotechnology and material systems engineering. So there is much to be discussed over the next couple of years, I'm quite sure.
Yeah. I mean, a lot was made of the date that was on that memo, and Chuck says basically it was a mistake, because he was trying to lump all three episodes into one episode kind of thing, wasn't it? And I suppose that was kind of like the middle date, and I suppose that was sort of plucked out of the, I suppose it's not a good term to say plucked out of the air, but
I suppose at the time it's one of them things where it may have just been literally just one of the things whereby you just want to get it done, put it away, get it done.
As we would do, put the 27
because it's causing, if you're in charge of that many people in charge of the base, you want it to stop. You don't want it continually going on, because there's important things that need to be concentrated on places like that, and any distraction such as that can potentially put any kind of decision or any kind of potentially put things in peril.
Yeah. Of course, he never realised it would become a big issue the following years.
I mean, there was other issues apparently going on with the bases, that are personal to those involved, and I'm sure again they've spoken about that as well. But again, they are issues that only people that were there at the time can contemplate, deal with, and discuss amongst themselves.
Yeah, so. Sure. But anyway, let's go on to John Burroughs and Jim Pennister. They both suffered quite ill effects over the years. I mean, I think mentally and physically. John was awarded got an award for the damage he'd apparently done to his heart. That was probably done from when he got knocked out. Well, we can't prove that, but obviously John must have had enough evidence to get that payout. You do go into that a little. Well, I think John does go into that in a book. And as we were saying, I think it was in the conference that you and I attended. I think that was 2014. Am I correct? I think it was probably about then.
Probably.
Yeah, I think it was.
I mean, John was suffering from a major, heart condition,
Yes.
and it literally was leading to malfunction and complete,
Yeah.
shut there, and it was actually Dr. Green and others. They actually made a huge contribution and actually saved his life. So we must also remember that as well,
Yeah. But I mean, something must have happened, obviously to him, and obviously the US Air Force had agreed that something happened to him.
Correct. It was actually, Dr. Kit Green actually did go on the record and actually mention, it was, what causes injuries, and how can it be true that his medical records were classified. And he's gone on the record, Dr. Green, and said that there's about 1,000 pages of John's records that are classified to this day.
Yeah.
And legally classified as well, so that's a big thing. These are legally classified documents.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's weird, really. I mean, hasn't John even got access to them himself?
Well, no, obviously not, because he hasn't,
Because, I mean, they're his medical records.
But they are, but these, you have to speak to his lawyers, but you cannot get hold of them.
Yeah, that's a strange one, that. Because I mean, we're all entitled to access to our own medical records, aren't we? So that I don't quite get my head around. But
well, I think it may. My personal opinion is that if it comes out into the open and gets into the wrong hands, it may have implications for national security, and that's as much as I'm going to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all we can say, isn't it? Just have to accept that. That's right. Okay. Right now, where do we go from there? Okay. So your studies into, can you explain a bit about your studies then? How did you? What is your background that gave you?
Well, I used to have weird experiences when I was younger. I used to kind of predict things, or say to me mum and me father, such and such has passed away, and they're like, no, look, they're alive, they're breathing, look, they're on telly, and
all right, no, that's interesting.
And a little while later, 5-6 days later, sometimes they would pass away, and it was almost as if they were all ready for me, but they weren't, and it was weird. It was strange for me as when I was younger. My mum thought I was probably a bit nuts, and so did I. So I just didn't bother telling anyone anymore.
Yeah.
Kept it to myself, and high strangeness basically has been with my family for a long time. And if I do go on, let me know, because sometimes I do go on and I forget the original question.
No, it's interesting, because as I say, I wanted to try to get to what made you decide to do what you were going to do. Was it because of your background? And would you call yourself psychic? I suppose that's what I'm kind of saying. And
clairvoyant. Well, I wouldn't say yes or no. I would say clairvoyance is probably prevalent in most people, but some people more than others.
To a certain extent, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And why and how, I think
very little in me, I must say.
Well, I think it's probably more, again, looking at the research I've done, I think it's more to do with DNA, and how DNA is probably the true sort of time traveller that we're actually looking for, rather than an actual machine. You see, because DNA, we've found out, it contains lots of parts that we thought were junk that are actually store memory. It's a memory storage molecule, and they can store. You can store lots of information within this, and all that information is us, and that information gets passed through time, literally, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
When you think about it,
yeah,
kind of. So yeah, that's the path that I'm going down. And the idea was that what would happen if you was remote viewing some target somewhere, or you was having a dream whereby you was floating somewhere and you was looking down on something in real time. What would that person that you were looking at, or the scene that you was imaging, could anyone at that scene, if you thought you was imaging that in real time, actually see what was above them, see any kind of energy, see any kind of anything there that may may then cause them to go, is that a UFO? In that sort of sense. And then I thought, wonder, because it reminded me of something that I thought of when I was even younger, which was Jamie and the Magic Torch. Obviously, I'm Ginger, and my name was Jamie. And it was around the time when I was getting bullied. So I decided I came up with an idea whereby my magic torch would shine a light, and it would find ghosts, and it would find creepy things, in the forest and stuff like that. You'd shine a light around this special torch, it would pick up ghosts, basically. You could pick up ghosts, and lo and behold, it turns out something like that is relevant to infrared and things like that.
Yeah.
So all these things I've sort of utilised and come up, and I've been thinking for lots and lots and lots. And so I started going into the electrical aspects of the potential behind the phenomena itself. And it led me down a very, very interesting path, considering how much we know about plasma and how much we have been experimenting with different kinds of, energy devices and things. Some work, obviously, to a certain extent, but it's not something that we could call sustainable energy. We're looking for something that's sustainable, that doesn't, that's not detrimental to anything. And that is the key in much of this, which is why I think personally a lot of it is probably, some of its stuff is classified and some of it is in the open. I mean, quantum biology is in the open now. It's being discussed openly that our DNA gives off ultra-weak photons, for instance, and it's quite possible that within these ultra-weak photons there is information, and it's that light information that's happening within our bodies. And if you incorporate that into kind of material systems engineering, you can imagine what might happen in the next 30, 40 years' time if you combine both aspects, and then we probably will be talking kind of Star Trek,
Yeah, and I think that's a big fear of a lot of people. We keep hearing about all this 5G and mRNA and all this sort of stuff, and I think people are getting some people are getting a bit worried about it, aren't they?
Well, the only people we've got to fear are our enemies, and unfortunately, and every man, woman and child will tell you this, most of them are just fictitious. Our enemies are very few. It shows you right now who our real enemies can be. Nature can be our real enemy when it comes down to it. We can throw, we can fight, we can do whatever we want, make everyone's lives a misery if we want, At the end of the day, when something like this happens, and nature bites back, it just it's a horrible thing to say, and I've lost friends, and so have you, I'm quite sure, and family over these past year and a half. And if it's a lesson to us all, it's that we need to talk, we need to get on, and we need to stop being stupid and start growing up and start treating each other as each other.
Yeah. Yeah, strangely, I've made lots of friends this year, believe it or not. But I suppose I've lost one or two in some ways, but I've made lots of others. It's been amazing this year.
Well, it's almost like there is a change going on somewhere, know. And, I mean, I think for us to move forward in much of this at a local level, a personal level, and I'm very interested in the very small and how very small can make a big difference. And I think that is within nature itself. And again, I think the answer to a lot of our problems lies within nature, including within ourselves, of course.
Yeah.
As we are all part of nature.
Yeah. I'll tell you what fascinated me in the book, which really started making me think about, that was really strange. The Fatima incident, which was mentioned on page, what was it? Page 99, in actual fact. It says, in October the 17th, 1917, an estimated 70,000 people gathered together at Fatima, it's a small town in Lisbon, Portugal, to watch a phenomenon which some described as the miracle of the sun. And people saw numerous things from a luminous ball of light. Now, what you were talking about, plasma and everything earlier on, do you think that could have been something like that?
I do, yes. I do believe it could have been something like this. You see, some of this phenomena, or part of this phenomena, does seem to be historical in its nature. From from Fatima, down to...
Well, yeah, I mean, we hear about things in the Bible, don't we, and everything like... Yeah, there are lots of occurrences.
Well, I found it quite intriguing that Sir Francis of Assisi was a patron saint of dementia and neurological diseases. And he had an experience himself, and there seems to be some kind of correlation between such when interacting with some of this UFO phenomena within certain parameters of being in parameters within this, this phenomena. It's kind of a mixed frequency ball of phenomena that they're still trying to understand.
Yeah. So in your mind, you do not think that was a UFO? You think that was something, a natural phenomena? I mean, I know you don't know for sure, but yeah.
UFO or UAP, an unidentified aerial phenomena, is the term I like to use now because it separates the nuts and bolts for me personally, and I hope it does for other people as well that are trying to look at this from a more of a less nuts and bolts thing, and more of more something that could quite possibly be cellular based, quite possibly, at a very, very obviously low level. But it was only realised a few years ago that they actually found microbial bacteria in our atmosphere that survives up there, and they don't know. They didn't realise it was there, and it survives, it thrives, and so there's many kind of theories and possibilities and stuff. But what I am trying to do, and what I've tried to learn to do, is try to move forward, but make sure that everything that I've got can be backed up by scholarly articles, by academic research. Not only, I had no qualifications in the sense of some of these guys out here, but I think I'm quite proud to say now, tap myself on the back, and I don't normally do that.
What is it?
I think I wish I'd studied more. Cause,
well, don't we all, mate? I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I used to do probably the same sort of thing as you. I used to collect scrapbooks and things over the years, and then I lost them all. It's only sort of in my later years now that I wish I'd done a lot more in my earlier years to, I really sort of respect a lot of these people that have been doing it right from the from their young years, and I really sort of, regret that I didn't do a lot more with my younger years. As I say, you can't say any more than that, can you?
Well, no, and I'm sure you've had your years doing many other good things.
Yeah,
that you would never forget. So yeah, we all do. There's good and bad in everything, isn't there? It's just getting that balance, knowing that both exist, but just making sure that we don't go too far either way.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I think it's just in my later years here, sort of one or two doors are open strangely without my expecting it, and that's where I've ended up now. I'll tell you what interests me when you were talking about a UFO you saw when you were younger, and you were talking about UFOs with your friend, and you went outside looking up at the sky, and the UFO appeared. Now that seemed to suggest something that I've heard a lot before, that if you talk about UFOs or are thinking about them, they appear. What's your thoughts on that?
You see, for some it seems to do that, but again, this seems to be. It seems to be something to do with location. It seems to be something to do with certain individuals, and it seems something to do with certain times of the evening. Like from your 3 a.m.s onwards and stuff like that. Around these sorts of times for your high strangeness, where it seems to kind of peak.
Yeah.
In these locations, and so there's lots of research into why this happens, and I mean, for me personally, I think it has more to do with, again, DNA and some kind of coherent vibration between this ultra low frequency DNA and this ultra low frequency phenomena. You see, the phenomena seems to become active when it's within, when there are things around that could give it energy, like a microwave radar, or something small that's giving out microwaves in the region, or something small that's giving out other kinds of frequencies and stuff, mixed frequencies that could potentially maybe have this stuff appear. It's like imagine Foo Fighters flying through the air. I personally think that the reason a lot of these were appearing was because of the types of radars that were being used at the time, and we were seeing things that we wouldn't have seen had we not pushed that radar through the air. Like I was telling you about that idea I had with the torch and shining the torch through a forest, and all of a sudden picking something up that you wouldn't normally see.
Yeah.
And I think our electronic countermeasures may actually energise this in some regions, and I mean that may have even been energising some of this bacteria in the sky that we've only recently realised that we have, So we're many sort of theories, many thoughts, and as I said, there's a few years left in me yet to move all this forward, hopefully.
Yeah. No, it's just I've heard the thing. I've heard that a few times where it seems like some people seem to be capable of summoning UFOs. It seems,
Yes.
I've spoken, as you know, on this show, I've spoken to quite a few people, and there do seem to be certain people that do seem to make them appear.
Well, I'm very one-sided in that I'm aware that there are these indigenous tribes whereby you have your shaman types, be of an age and an elder that seems to have lots of knowledge passed down to them, and they seem to be the ones that can achieve some kind of altered state of mind whereby they have communication with something. Whereas there are other aspects that I think are just personally, I think, phony, and
you do.
Absolutely. And it's only when you start looking at the science behind things, you start understanding this a lot more. Which for me has been an absolute godsend in that at least I am kind of know where to look, what to look for, and also know where not to go, and where not to take my camera equipment or any of my kind of recording equipment if I do want to investigate this phenomena. You understand?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. I do know what you mean.
Well, yeah. Not too close to anywhere where there's electronic countermeasures, basically.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, James, what about the hypnotism aspect of it all? Would you like to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. It's quite important actually, in the sense that the research that I seem to show, it seems to be that and Stuart Hammeroff, his research also backs this up as well. When you're some of these people are experiencing this missing time period. It's a missing time period, and it's consistent with that we get from like a general anaesthetic, whereby we go to sleep and we wake up. Now, to get the information from that missing point in time, it creates a thing called, I believe it's a thing called self-referentiality, whereby the mind itself is trying to extract information, but it can't find anything from that because it's blank, it's a void. So it's actually getting things from before that moment and after that moment and trying to combine the two to create an image to give an answer.
I see, yeah.
And I mean, in a deeper level, I do believe this goes down to the way weak photons interact, and how we see images and blah. But that's a lot further down the line, and I'll try and keep it all very layman right now, best I can. It's also leading to other kinds of theories that I am going to be probably talking about. Let me have a look, see what I can talk about and what I'm saving for my own
show.
Well, there's a couple of things I need to confirm first before I start talking about it, and I don't really want to talk about something that I haven't confirmed first. And it's basically the art of survival again. It comes down to finding it in nature and that, and that kinds of thing. But yeah, hypnotism. Yeah, I have a very, 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 very hard time now grasping how that would give us a picture of what people are experiencing during that missing time period.
Right. I mean, we do hear that it seems to be that a lot of things were put into people's minds under hypnotism, and this is why we've got such a conflict of stories. The
kinds of debriefs that I researched, obviously I can't the kinds of debriefs that were taken out were harsh, were very harsh. We know the kinds of debriefs that were carried out essentially only when we look at the kinds of things we would do to extract information from potential enemies or enemies at the time.
Yeah.
Now, their techniques and the law and everything like that, that's out of my hands. You have to speak to the lawyers about all that and, and everything about that. I don't really want to say anything that will detriment anything that may happen in the future, So, where do I go from there?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where the whole of the RFI is really. Where do we go from here? Because
yeah. Well, I like to. I mean, the way I'm trying to move things on is the sense that yes, there is definitely a phenomenon, and it is also quite possible that something of ours did actually come down in the forest. Possibly a penetration aid, possibly in the sea there was debris from a Russian satellite. There is that sticks with me a lot in my research, especially considering the electromagnetic phenomena that they're explaining in some of the DARPA paperwork that I was going through. So there is definitely a phenomena, and that's what I would like to move forward now. I can talk about the Rendlesham Forest for years onwards, but I would like to now start talking about the actual phenomena, this UAP phenomena that is obviously apparent. It exists, and it's something that it's a very interesting, very, very interesting subject. Well, it is for me because, as I say, I've seen the light with it almost, So it seems to tick all the boxes for me personally as to what this phenomena could well be. Yeah.
Well, I know, I've got to say, was it last year when John Barrows was on the Jimmy Church show? He seemed to be suggesting that he thinks it could be agreeing with Jim Pedeston that it could have been us from the future, which I found rather weird at the time because John had been saying kind of the opposite for a number of years.
Well, I can't speak for John, and I don't know if that is exactly what he said. Obviously, you have to give me the quote and everything from the show itself, because...
well, it surprised me. It kind of took me back a bit at the time.
My research suggests that DNA is the true time traveller here.
Yeah. I mean, you could be right. I mean, if John's listening to this, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure he did actually say that. I'll have to try and dig out the record. I've probably got a little recording here somewhere of it. I'll try and dig it out. So let's just make sure I've got it right. Okay, I found that recording. This was on Jimmy Church's Fade to Black show, probably about a year or so ago. I did ask Jim if it was all right to play it.
Jim Penniston and the time travel aspect of this has always kind of gotten lost in the smoke and the mist. Is this a time where we go back and revisit Jim's testimony and bring Jim back and start talking about this time travel aspect?
What I can say about Penniston is his hypnosis in '96 affected a lot of what he feels is possible and what's going on. And only the audience can go back, look at his testimony over the years, look at his book and everything else and make their own decision. But what I am saying is what I feel is there is an energy, and it's something that could very well be from the future based on my hypnosis and some other research that maybe can come back and forth and pop in. And what he even said at one point, which hasn't been talked about a long time, was they were back looking, which is what in my hypnosis said the same thing. And there was some really strange things that parallel between both of our hypnoses. That mine was in '88 and his was in '94 or '95. That really opened my eyes up when I saw the transcript from his after mine. And from what I understand, he never saw mine, at that point.
That was my next question.
He didn't know about my hypnosis. And my hypnosis had been completely kept quiet. In other words, I signed an exclusive agreement with Brubaker that it couldn't be released without my permission, and it never came out. It's never been, other than Linda has used little clips of it that are now on YouTube that have come out in her presentations that she's done over the years. And one of the things that's pretty moving is, if you see it, if it's still up there, is when the guy says, "Look at the life form," or what is the blue light, and it comes back. It's the life form.
Man, oh
and
man!
This was in 1990. This was in 1998, Jimmy, way before all this stuff has been floating around and going on.
There we go. That was John Burroughs on Jimmy Church's Fade to Black show from, I don't know, it was probably about a year ago. I suppose really we've kind of covered everything you can actually say, haven't you, really? And I think all I can suggest is you should go out and buy the book, and I'm going to say it now, The Weaponisation of an Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, The Rendlesham Forest UAP Incident 40 Years Later, by John F. Burroughs and James Worrow. Yeah, I managed to say it. How about that? Anyway, James, it's been great talking to you on the show.
Oh, bless. It's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to trying to be a little bit more relaxed next time. It's early days.
No, it's been good having you on. Obviously,
fun.
Now, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, no doubt they can. Can they email you or get in touch with me to contact you or whatever? Or they can find you on Facebook anyway, can't they?
They can find me on Facebook. Yeah. I mean, I'm very much got my head in so many books right now. I've got this thing in front of me called Consciousness Manifesto, Physical Origins of Consciousness Through Evolution and Revolution. So, and it's all connected to the kind of DNA aspects.
Who wrote that? That sounds interesting.
Oh, this is a gentleman called Jim. Excuse me if I get his name wrong, but I do apologise.
Oh, it's one of those.
Jim Belcher. Jim Belcher.
Belcher, oh.
Yeah, PhD, Jim Belcher.
Right, okay.
So, yeah, interesting stuff. Bless everyone. If they do want to contact me, please send a quick message on to type my name in, send a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If it's delayed, don't worry. I will get back to you, because the last thing I want to do, and the last thing I'll ever try and do, is let people down, and that's something I never... Yeah. Okay, Dave?
Well, if anyone's desperate to get hold of you, and they can't get hold of you, just contact me, and I'll put you in touch with James. That's probably the easiest way, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm unfortunately, I click buttons so quickly, I don't even take note of my own account names or passwords or anything like that, really. So
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Anyway, James. Well, I'll see you at the next conference whenever we can get out and go to any. So. Well, hopefully. Well, I think I might be probably tenting up somewhere in a forest somewhere near you. So we shall see. Right, okay. Well, you probably don't know that I've moved. I don't live near Rendlesham Forest anymore.
Ah, where have you moved to?
I live on Canby Island, nearer to you now.
Oh, wow.
So I'm actually I actually transmit from Canby Island now, not where I used to live.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I moved just before Christmas, so...
Oh, understood. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, you enjoy your new home, sir.
Yeah.
Bless your new house.
Well, you never know. I'll probably still be going up to Rendlesham occasionally. You never know. I might bump into you. And certainly if something happens, I shall be there anyway. Hopefully if there's another conference, if we can get Colonel Holt or John who wants to come back, or if we can get Jim over for something like that. I'm sure something will happen.
Yeah. You know, they say sometimes it's surprising how close we are, considering the distance it may seem.
That's absolutely right. Anyway, James, been lovely talking to you, and thank you very much. And hopefully you'll come back again when you've got some new things to present to us.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. You wait, I've got some really interesting things to talk about.
Great. Okay. Right. Well, that's the invitation for later in the year then.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dave.
You take care of yourself, mate. Cheers. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
You've been listening to Paranormal Dimensions on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm David Young. Hope you'll join us again next week.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear. There's plenty left.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.